Welcome, everyone. This is the Sharpen Up podcast. I'm your host, JC Bruce, with my co-host, Ron Rollins. Ron, good seeing you. You just got back from vacation, right?
I did. We were down in your state. Unfortunately, you were not there while we were there, so we didn't get to see you. But you were recently in my state, so I did get to see you then.
That's
So
true.
there has been much travel since the last it has ensued since the last podcast. And you went to Texas too. How was Texas?
Texas was good. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, I'm broadcasting here from sunny Naples, Florida, on the Sunshine State Southwest coast. And Ron is up in Dayton, Ohio, in his art studio. Ron and I met up in Hocking Hills, Ohio, along with a handful of friends. We were all in a book club together, and twice a year, the book club has retreats both in Eastern Ohio and in Michigan, and we were up there for that. And then from there, we drove, Sandy and I drove to Texas. We spent some time in Dallas and then down in Austin visiting family. It was loads of fun. And while we were doing that, you were back here in the Gunshine State, right? You were down
That's right.
Where were you, in Bradenton someplace?
We were in Anna Maria Island,
Okay.
between bottom of Tampa Bay, next to Bradenton. Yeah, very, very pretty little island. Our second time down there. We have a friend who here in Dayton whose family owns. It's an old classic cinder block, old Florida beach house, probably from the 60s or 70s, and it's right across the street from the beach. But it's a tiny house, and very simple, and very, very affordable, and we love it. And the wife and I went down there and had a great time. Actually, it was cooler in Florida than it was in Ohio while we were away. They were having days up here in like the mid 90s or low 90s, and we had like high 70s, low 80s, and breezy. It was beautiful down there. So yeah,
Right.
Still not moving to Florida though. Yeah.
Well,
It's
this
too
time
cold.
of year,
It's
the
crazy
Gulf
down
of
there.
Mexico is cooler than the land some days, and so you get that onshore breeze. Yeah, and if you're close to the water,
Yeah.
it is a lot cooler.
It was fabulous.
Before we started broadcasting, we talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about, which
That's right.
is the subject of a great deal of research before each of these podcasts, taking at least, I would say, 60 to 90 seconds before we crank things up.
I think that's typical. That may be high, actually.
And I would say for people with short attention spans, that's devoting a lot of time to planning. But anyway,
Jeff, we were journalists after all. We were journalists after all. Okay, we're not known for our planning or long attention spans. So I'm just saying.
Well, one of the things we talked about was the preliminary results from a survey that was in the last Sharpen Up newsletter. It's a free monthly newsletter that I publish at the beginning of every month. It kind of highlights all the interesting things that are going to be taking place in the month ahead, so that all the newsletter readers, the tens of thousands of people who subscribe for free, have this as a planning guide. And one of the things we noted was that the month of May is National Hamburger Month. And this is a significant event because it gave us an opportunity to poll our readers on what their favorite hamburger joint was. And one of the things you pointed out in the last podcast, Ron, was that great quote from Calvin Trillin, in which he said, and I'm quoting here, I've got this up on my screen: anybody who doesn't think that the best hamburger place in the world is in his own town is a sissy.
A sissy.
A sissy, right?
Which dates that quote somewhat.
Dates that quote, right? So I think it's interesting that I think I gave people something like, I don't know, 8 or 9 possible choices on which burger joint they like the best, and one of them was other. And I think Calvin Trillin was prophetic because of all the chain burgers like Culver's and Burger King and Whataburger and In-N-Out joint and all the McDonald's and the other choices. The majority, the plurality of people, I should say, chose other.
Yes.
And we had some interesting observations. So I'll give you the stats so far. And this poll is still running. It's in the newsletter and on Facebook and on Twitter. 31% of respondents said other, and of those people who commented, they were all referring to local places in their towns. And then
Yes.
in descending order from there, it was In-N-Out Burger was 17%, Whataburger for 14%, Burger King 12, Culver's 11. And then the one that really intrigued me of the ones I listed was the Burger Joint, which got 9% of the votes. And I see, for those of you who are viewing this on YouTube, as opposed to on other podcast channels, you will see the puzzled look on Ron's face because I'm
Yes.
inferring that
I am
you've not
unfamiliar
heard
with the
of the burger joint.
I have not.
And that surprised me that so many people had heard of the burger joint. It is this funky, curtained off area of the lobby of what used to be the Parker Meridian Hotel near Central Park in New York. And you walk in the lobby of the Parker Meridian, which has since changed names. And there's this like big red curtain off in the corner, and you wonder what the heck's behind the curtain. Well, you have to kind of weave your way back there. And you come to this dilapidated, funky hamburger joint in the middle of this swanky hotel. And it's the burger joint. So I was
Wow.
surprised at how
where-
many people
and
have been
where-
here.
Where is that again?
Well, it used to be the Parker Meridian. It's on West 56th Street near Central Park.
Okay.
The hotel
Okay,
has
all right.
changed names and has been sold, and it's now called Thompson Central Park. And I've not been there
Okay.
since it's changed names, but apparently the burger joint
Wow.
shut down during the pandemic. They've now
Okay.
reopened, and it is certainly my favorite place to have hamburgers in New York. I did not pick it as my favorite hamburger place, but it was it was in serious consideration. So,
Well,
but
that's
among the
it-
other
it's
places,
interesting.
go ahead.
I was going to say, for some odd reason, I think of New York for many kinds of wonderful culinary delights, but for some reason, I don't associate it with great hamburgers. I do not know why. As opposed to, say, the way you think of deep dish pizza from Chicago, or whatever, or barbecue from Texas or North Carolina. I mean, I don't tend to think of. I'm sure I'm not suggesting that there are not many great hamburgers to be had in New York City. I don't mean that. But when I think of food in New York City, I don't automatically think, oh yeah, that's where I'm going for a hamburger, right?
Right. Right.
And I may be wrong, but I'm just saying, of
No,
all
I
of
think
the
you're
wonderful
absolutely
food,
right.
I would tend to think of it more as a place where you would go for like high-end ethnic food. If I wanted Afghani cuisine, it's where I'd go to New York for it, right? Because I'm sure not going to find it in Dayton. That's interesting. I'm surprised that many people knew where it was too.
Yeah, it
I've
was.
never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we love going to New York. We dine at, I mean, it's got a wide array of Indian restaurants and surprisingly some wonderful Mexican restaurants, in Midtown. So,
I
but
have experienced that. Yep.
yeah, but thinking back to Calvin Trillin and people defending their local places, I ended up voting for a little restaurant called Juicy's, which is in Longview, Texas. Juicy's got only one vote, and that was from me because it could very well be that a lot of people have not traversed Longview, Texas. You're missing out. You should go. It's a cool town. But I got some people here. We got Deborah Rich from Austin, Texas, says the best hamburger joint. She's defending a hometown hamburger joint is Dan's, hands down, but you got to come to Austin, she says. In Dallas, Debbie Austin Manning says Charlie's Old Fashioned Burger in Fort Worth is the very best. Never been, don't know.
I've been to Fort Worth, but I've never been to Charlie's.
I know. And closer to home, this one surprised me. There is a burger joint here in Naples, Florida, which I had not heard of. Bill Leonard advises us that Gators Crossing makes the best burgers, but they're in the Everglades, so you have to wonder if the burgers are made of beef or alligator. So
right. Well,
So Ron,
I've had alligator. I have not had it in a burger that I'm aware of. I have to share I believe I was a Whataburger voter, but I will say, and we also talked in the last podcast about White Castle not being part of the poll and the survey. White Castle, the singing of the praises of White Castle could be an entire separate podcast. Maybe we'll get to it today, maybe we won't. However, I have to share a recent fast food burger epiphany that would have altered the results of the poll had I had it before I participated in the poll, Jeff. This was a
Okay.
big deal to me.
Okay.
Well, and this is how it goes. I have long been a McDonald's guy. I don't need a lot of fast food, but when I do, McDonald's is quick, it's consistent, it's all the things you want fast food to be. I'm in and out. But I will say that I've had several recent McDonald's experiences that were not up to par, let's just say. And on the way to Florida, my wife said, "Hey, let's stop at that Burger King." And so we did. And I will say that I had a Whopper at Burger King that was maybe the finest uh, hamburger, fast food hamburger experience I've had in many, many, many years. And I have changed. I have changed.
You're a changed man.
You're looking at a changed or listening to a changed man. It was the experience of that Whopper. I will say this. If you're driving, it's much easier to eat a McDonald's uh, hamburger or cheeseburger than it is to eat a Whopper. Okay, the Whopper is a much sloppier sandwich because it is has a more of a handmade feel with actual ingredients in it instead of whatever's in the quarter pounder that is just kind of like all together. It's like the quarter pounder kind of fell out of a machine as a complete thing, and which is why it's easy to eat when you're driving. The Whopper was clearly made by hand, and it was a brilliantly amazing experience, and I am forever changed. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I've got two
Yeah,
things to say about um, Burger King. First of all, if you haven't, you should have the Impossible Burger at Burger
I
King.
have had that.
It
Yes,
tastes just like a regular hamburger, as far as I'm
it
concerned.
does. It
Right.
does.
And the other
Yes,
thing is,
and
I think I agree with you about trying to eat. I would say trying to eat any hamburger, but certainly a Burger King hamburger while driving. It never works for
yes,
me. I've given up trying to
no.
do it. And part of the
Mhm.
reason why is that I don't put ketchup on hamburgers. I think that that's absurd. I put mustard on hamburgers. And
We have to talk with this. We have to talk.
we have
Okay,
to talk about this
continue
because
with your. Go
mustard
ahead,
on
please. Go ahead.
burger, mustard on everything is better. But mustard, there's something about mustard that I don't care how careful I am. I get it all over myself. It's down the front of my shirt. It's all over my hands.
That's
I
true.
cannot eat anything, a hot dog, a hamburger, cannot eat
Right.
anything with mustard on it without getting it all over myself. So I've given up trying to drive and eat, which is probably safer for the entire world and certainly myself and my passengers.
We should probably say for the listening public that we are not necessarily endorsing eating while driving. While it's not as bad as drinking and driving, certainly it's something that we should not be seeming to support or advocate for. However, it is something that does happen, especially on long trips. So you have to keep going. You pull through the fast food. It's right off the interstate. You get a sandwich and you go. Yes, the Burger King Whopper was harder to drive with. Despite that, it was a profound eating experience, fast food experience. I will go back. I
You will
will
go
also
back.
say,
And you've
yes,
changed
I
your
will
vote
also
from
say
Whataburger to Burger King, I see.
I have. I will also say that their coffee, Burger King's coffee, was some of the best fast food coffee I've had in a long time. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts coffee guy, but I'll tell you, man, the Burger King coffee was great. Now, my sadness would be if it turned out, even though that there's a high degree of consistency between chains, there are some simply that are McDonald's that are better than others. There are some Burger Kings that are better than others based on whatever. Um, I will be deeply saddened if it turns out that this was a unique Burger King experience and that it does not hold up at my next visit at a different Burger King. I will be very, very sad.
Well,
And
you
I
will
will
have to
report
report
back.
back. Yeah.
I will report back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Thank you.
and I think we should get some feedback from our other listeners. I mean, uh,
I got to ask about mustard though. Okay, so
Okay,
no ketchup on the, if you go to a hamburger, if you go to a fast food place, do you ask them not to put ketchup on your burger?
right. No ketchup, no
Hmm.
mayonnaise, add mustard. I mean, that
Huh.
is one of the many things that my wife and I agree upon. It's part of our
Hmm.
cultural heritage, I guess, but we are mustard
That's
people
interesting.
here. Right. We like
I do
spicy
like
stuff.
mustard on, yeah.
I mean, are you the
I
kind of
like
person
mustard
that
on
puts
almost everything.
you okay? Well, do you put ketchup on almost everything? I mean, you're not one of these people that
I
puts ketchup on a hot dog, are you?
No, no, no.
All right.
But I am a
Okay.
ketchup. I am a ketchup fan. If I eat fries, they must be with ketchup or
Oh
with
yeah, no.
mayonnaise. You know, we went to Belgium years ago, and when you buy French fries or pommes frites, as they call them, that's the extent of my French. That you get them in a paper cone on the street. There's French fry vendors in Belgium, in the cities, and we were in Bruges, I believe, and there's French fry stands, and you get a paper cone of them, and they're really good, and they serve them with mayonnaise. There's no ketchup to be seen. In fact, they have like a big giant pump bottle of mayo, and you put the mayo on there, and that changed me. That was another food epiphany. Yeah, mayo on fries. Now my son believes that mayonnaise is as he puts it, quote, the condiment of the devil. I don't know what it is about mayonnaise he dislikes. He has never been able to articulate it properly, other than to assign satanic properties to it. I, 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 maybe he's not my son. But
Well, there is
I'm a
kind of
ketchup.
a stigma attached to mayonnaise and the mayonnaise white bread Midwestern sort of
Yeah,
stereotype, right? Maybe he's
I
rebelling against
guess
this stereotype. Although
that
he,
would be like my son to do that, but
yeah, but also he's a person
I
of,
think that's unfair.
amazingly good taste. So,
Based on other things, yes, but I'm not sure that's fair to lump mayonnaise in with all those other things. I think mayonnaise, certainly the Belgians. I mean, if you want to start a hot street fight with a Belgian, just tell them that mayonnaise sucks. And man, these normally peaceful people, they'll come at you. They
yeah.
don't, you
So
don't want to do
you
it.
you were in Bruges. Did you see the movie In Bruges?
I have seen the movie in Bruges. Aside from it being one of the most delightfully profane films of all time, it is fun. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
were we were also in Brussels. I mean, world travelers that apparently we both are. And
We both are.
one of the things we picked up when we were in Bruges is that they hate the movie In Bruges when you
I
are, in
imagine they
fact,
would. Yeah.
in Bruges. And one of the reasons why we were told is that when these bad guys, a bit of a story synopsis, bad guys are trying to
Right.
hide out somewhere, so they end up in Belgium, right?
Right.
And so the filmmakers are trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the most boring, unlikely place that anyone would want to spend any time in? And they decided it
Right.
was Bruges. And so the
Right.
people in
Right.
Bruges felt deeply insulted by the movie, that,
Of course,
the
as they would.
insinuation that this is a dull place that only serves French fries with mayonnaise on the street.
Right.
And that's the only thing it's got going for it.
Well, it has lots of canals and lace as well. I mean,
It does.
it's a lovely town. Now, which that begs the question. We probably exhausted mustard and mayo. If you had to hide out, if you were those hitmen, and I believe they're UK guys, right? They're
Right.
they're they're
Yeah.
they're hiding from London or somewhere. If so, taking their original locale off the table. If you, Jeff Bruce, had to hide out somewhere, where would you go?
Well, you want to go someplace where you'd blend in, right?
Right.
You
Small
know,
towns are out. Right.
so yeah, you want to be someplace where you can be lost in the crowd, where you don't stand out because of language, for instance. So you would
Right.
have to be
Right.
English speaking. And
Yeah. In my case, Lagos would be out. Correct. Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, even English speaking, you might stand out because you're going to sound like a Yank if you go to, if
Yeah.
you go to London. And
Right.
blimey, you're not going to sound right in
Mm,
Oz.
right.
So you're probably going to have to be somewhere hiding out in America by that criteria,
Mm,
right? So
yep.
I'd go
Yep.
for a
Yep.
big city in America where you're going to look like every other guy wandering around.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know that that would work, Ron, because with all of the CCTV cameras and wanted posters
True.
and the internet, I think you better go someplace that has excellent plastic surgery facilities where you can just change your entire appearance. I don't know
Well,
where
you're
that would
assuming
be.
I don't know what that would be. Although there was an interesting New York Times article in the magazine last week about butt lifts. Did you see that?
No, but I have actually done, you're not going to believe this, I have done research on Brazilian butt lift places in Miami because I actually had a reference to it in one of my novels. So I'm assuming this is what
Please,
we're talking about, right?
it is. Please explain that. But since we want your novels to take some mention in these podcasts, please explain how the
Well,
Brazilian butt lift
Well, it's
featured.
actually it's a serious news story because there are in Miami lots and lots of cosmetic surgery places,
Right,
and a butt lift apparently is one of the many kinds of surgical procedures. Maybe that's the answer to your
right,
previous question. Maybe you go to Miami because you can get a Brazilian facelift along with your Brazilian butt lift. I don't know, but
right, right.
there have been a lot. There's been a lot written about it about mishaps after surgical procedures and shady operators down
That's
there.
what this story was about. Yeah,
Yeah.
this story was about the even when they're done well, the healing time and recovery is difficult. And I guess it's a matter of moving body fat from one part of your body to another, and that just often does not go well. It was an interesting story. My wife found it and pointed it out to me, and I was like, this is a horror show. It's terrible. But
Yeah.
yeah, how did you work that into your plot?
I'm trying to remember which of the five books that shows up in. Because this was a spur of the moment thing.
Right.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think what it is, it was probably throughout all of the Strange Files series of books. Our protagonist is a reporter. He covers
Mhm.
news of the weird, and he did the books are sprinkled with samples of his columns that he writes, and one of them was
Right.
about this. I just don't recall off the top of my head
Oh, okay.
which of the
Gotcha.
books it was. But since you've mentioned that, this
Yes.
segues to something that I mentioned before we started the show.
During the research phase of the
During the
research phase
90
of the
second research phase, yes. In the monthly newsletter that I send out, where I highlight everything that's going on in the
right.
month ahead, I rely on a lot of different sources for that. But one of them is
Sure.
is a big fat book. Here, I got it right here.
Oh yeah.
Credit where credit's due. This is Chase's Calendar of Events. It is a
Oh
huge publication. It comes
yeah.
out annually, costs about
Mhm.
$100.
We used to have one of
But
those in the newsroom. Yeah.
exactly, and that's where I first
Yeah.
encountered it.
Right.
And it's
Right.
just really chock-a-block full of interesting stuff. So I use this as a reference point as well as internet and other things. And so today,
Wow.
since we happen to be doing this broadcast on May 19th, I just on whimsy said, well, what's happening on May 19th? And I ran across
Mhm.
something that I had forgotten about, but that I had referenced in one of my books, since we were talking about books. And I'm going to tell you about this. On May 19, in the year 1780, the skies in New England went completely black.
Hmm.
People thought it was the end of times. People were lighting candles. Chickens went to roost. Um, Meetings were disrupted. Everybody thought it was the end of the world. Nobody knew what the hell it was. And then
Hmm.
it went away. And to this day, nobody knows what caused that. It was some sort of bizarre meteorological phenomenon of some kind. Nobody
Wow.
knows. I mean, it could have been the mothership passing over New England and blocking out the
Right.
sun for all we know.
Right.
But it is one of
But
those. It is one of those mysteries. And I
it was
was
localized to New England.
it was reported in New England, but bear in mind this is 1780, so
Right.
that's where the bulk in 1780 that would be where the bulk of the population was. How further widespread it
Right.
was is undocumented as far as I know. So
Huh.
that happened, in 1780 on this day in history, May 19th. But I ran across that when I was writing um, this book, Get Strange.
Oh yeah,
Let's see if I can
great
center
book.
that in here. Yeah.
Those of you
And
in the listening audience, Jeff is now showing the cover of the book, so you should find us on YouTube
yes,
because you get
indeed.
the visuals in addition to the audio.
Yeah. Well, in a
And that
first, what's that?
book is where in the series? Remind us where that is in the series.
This is book number 3 in the series. The first book
Right.
in the series
Okay.
is The Strange Files. The second is Florida
Right.
Man. And then we come to Get
Correct.
Strange. And in an earlier draft of this book, I referenced that phenomenon as something that Alexander Strange is reading as he's sitting at a bar waiting for this mysterious stranger to show up, and adventure ensues from that point on. And I just realized looking at this before our podcast that I had edited that part out. However, I think I was so enamored with that May 19 date that I kept it at the very end, at the epilogue of the book. One of the closing lines is, "At high noon on May 19, the skies grew suddenly dark over Immokalee, Florida. It wasn't the apocalypse, obviously, an eclipse of the sun, verifiably, nor an alien invasion. Rather, it was the smoke from a monstrous fire that erupted on the campus of the Museum of Holy Creation." So
Wow.
that's part of how Get Strange ends, and just serendipitous that we should be having this conversation on that date,
May 19th.
on May
Wow.
19th.
Well,
Yes.
if you think about it, so last week or earlier this week, we had at least up in the Midwest, we had a lunar eclipse. Did you guys have the eclipse down in Florida?
We did. Very same moon. It's
Were you
awesome.
able? Well, I know, but I mean, you sometimes eclipse. Yeah, okay, all right, you got me on that. Thank you. Sometimes eclipses are not able to be seen equally in different parts of the hemisphere. But
that's especially true of solar eclipses. Yes.
True. It was very cloudy in Dayton area. We could not see it at all. But
Then how do you know it happened?
I read about it in the newspaper, and I know that, as you know, everything you read is true. And don't forget Abraham Lincoln's favorite or famous quote that not everything you can read on the internet is true. But no, I read about it and saw pictures posted later by friends who were not in the Dayton area on Facebook. No, if you we are lucky to live in a world and in a time in which we know why these things happen, right?
Right.
I mean, in 1780 or say 1500, there's the sun, the moon turns blood red or dark brown and partway disappears, and everybody freaks the hell out and wonders what's going on. Is it the end of times? And
Yeah. So
women are burned at the stake, and men are
say.
thrown off the battlements. I mean,
Right.
what we are happy, we are fortunate to live in a time in which we know why these things occur.
That's right.
And that
If
they're
only
not that big a deal.
Right. Especially for people that actually believe in science. Now, for
Another
those listeners out there
subject of another
who think the
podcast.
Earth is flat, we point out that, okay, if you think the Earth is flat, then your theory is that it's sort of pancake Earth that sits
Right.
on the backs of 3 elephants that are resting on a giant space turtle. Okay.
Space turtle, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So if there were a lunar eclipse, it wouldn't blot out the whole moon. We would see the silhouette of, a flat Earth, 3 elephants, and a giant
Correct.
space turtle, which we don't do. So you
Well,
flat earthers, you've got a
might see one
lot to answer for there.
You might see one of the trunks of the elephants kind
That's
of
a
moving
good
back
point.
and forth against the moon. Yeah, but
Yeah,
and since just because we haven't seen that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Because as
That's
you
true.
know, Jeff, birds are not real. Are you familiar with the birds are not real?
Okay, we're going to have to hear this.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time, so I will briefly mention it, and then we can amplify it perhaps in the next podcast. I will do
All
a little
right.
more research.
Okay.
There is a group of millennial and Gen Z folks who have begun a movement called "Birds Are Not Real," and basically they know that birds actually are real, but it is a spoof on conspiracy theorists, right-wing conspiracy theorists, who believe all kinds of crazy stuff that we'll get to in the next podcast when we talk more about birds, apparently. And these guys are pushing the birds are not real movement as a straight-faced send up on ridiculous conspiracy theories. And they have all kinds of I'm putting air quotes for those of you listening at home, proof that birds are not real, and evidence, I did it again, that birds are not real, and they are sticking to their guns, by God. So maybe that's something we can kick off next time. I will do more research,
Do
and
that, and I will,
more than 60 seconds of it, I promise.
yeah, do that, and I'll dig out my dark sucker documentation. This is the theory that light bulbs don't actually emit light. What they do is they suck the darkness out of the air. So
I was not familiar with that one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've gotten the whole idea of light bulbs wrong all along. So
Wow.
Thomas Edison was busily engaged in sucking darkness out of the air, was not trying to emit light.
Does that work? Is that incandescent and LED both do that? Or
I think that's true. Yeah. It's just a question of
Okay.
how efficiently you can suck the darkness out of the air. So
okay.
I think we should suck some
all right.
darkness out of the heads of some of the people that are falling in love with all of these weird conspiracies too.
Conspiracy theories sounds like it's going to be the theme of the next podcast. I will
think
say,
so.
perhaps as we close, that one of the other news items I ran across earlier this week or late last week was they have taken a photograph. They have found the dark hole at the center of our the black hole at the center of our galaxy. Speaking of sucking up darkness, or the reverse, sucking up light, you probably saw that.
I did.
It's a very cool photo of the place where everything we see, know, and have ever touched will eventually end up in a few trillion years, right?
Yeah.
Which is food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. I thought it was an X-ray of Mitch McConnell's brain. Did I get that wrong?
I think it was his butthole, actually. I think. I'm not sure if I mean, it was a flaming orange, you know.
Okay.
So perhaps
yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether that survives the edit of this thing. Yeah, and yes,
well,
folks,
that's
do
your
edit
call,
this.
Jeff. You're the brain. You're the brains of the operation. You just keep on thinking. You just keep on thinking, Butch. That's what you're good at.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up, and yeah, let's come back and talk about our favorite conspiracy theories.
We shall. I will start off with the birds are not real.
That's going to be
so
tough
if you
to
see
top.
if you see one, I mean a bird, between now and the next podcast, don't be afraid, because we will explain.
Can they be photographed?
What it is that you've.
Are they like vampires? You can't photograph them?
No, you can. I've seen photographs of birds. So you can well, I've seen photographs of whatever it is that the birds actually are.
Or maybe that's just what the birds show us.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's kind of like in that Calvin and Hobbes strip where Calvin asks Dad what the difference between why old photos are in black and white. And you remember that one?
No, go ahead.
And he explains. And he explains that why were old photos in black and white, and why do we have color photos now? And he says, well, it's easy, son, because back then the world was in black and white. And then around 1950, they invented color, and color, basically after that. And he says, well, then why didn't the old black and white photos then turn into color? And Dad has an elaborate explanation for all the this stuff. I will also search out that Calvin and Hobbes cartoon.
Oh, good. Well, you got homework.
My all-time favorite. I have actual research to do. Yeah, I better take notes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we're signing off. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.